I was getting ready for this talk, I realized that there's like a mindset that I go through before I present to you guys. And there's a logic actually behind it. So one of the ways that I pick the topic is based off of what you guys need and what I'm seeing continual questions being asked. So, and when we're at the adjusting table, sometimes I can give you a really quick answer, and sometimes I can't. And I'm a visionary. So when I start working with you guys one-on-one, I'm thinking about the totality of your health, and I'm not always down in the details of that moment because I'm thinking like bigger picture for you. So one of the reasons that I decided to pick pain as a topic to do was I wanted to give you, I'm hoping that today you have a reframe of what pain is, why it shows up, and how you can go about addressing it. And I will talk periodically, in my mind, there's two types of pain. There's the pain that shows up like short little spurts, and then it goes away. And then there's the chronic pain that sticks around. And I think the majority of what I'm going to talk about today is more the chronic pain, but I think you can apply these principles to the short-term pain as well. So that's sort of, and then the other thing I'm going to do is, you'll see I'll talk a little bit about nutrition, I'll talk about supplements, but I really strongly feel like with pain, we've been fooled to think that when I have a pain problem, I can take one pill and now it's going to go away. So that is how we've been trained. So one thing that you might have to sort of rebrand your brain or rethink about this is when people step over into the alternative world, what they want to do is use that same principle. They want to say, oh, I have pain, therefore it must be one problem, and if I fix that one problem, then the pain will go away. And unfortunately, in the alternative world, it doesn't really work like that. We look at, me personally, I look at the body like when you guys get to the table and you say, I'm experiencing this, this, and this. What I translate it into is, what is the body telling us? Why is the body talking to us? What is it saying? What does it need? What is it needing? And then when you come back and you say, it's still doing this, this, and this, I think, okay, wait, did we get it what it needs? Because if the pain's not going away, we haven't addressed what the body needs. So I really think of it in a more of a big picture, and I think that's what I'm hoping you'll see tonight, is that pain is really like a fire alarm. It's like the body's like, help, and when it sticks around, the body doesn't know how to tell you more. I mean, a lot of people go from pain into not being able to walk. I mean, I have a patient right now who came to us who can't walk because he didn't listen to his pain, and now the disc in his low back is just getting worse and worse and worse. So anyway, so I want to kind of give you that paradigm of how I approach this topic. Okay, second thing, I want to introduce you to this woman right here. You might have seen her in our office. She was here actually today. Her name is Sue. This is her on her 70th birthday. And she has come to me every week since I pretty much opened my doors. I think I used to be at another place, at another small little office around the corner. And as a lot of you guys know, what ends up happening is a lot of offices come to see me. So like they send one person and they're like, you go check her out. And they come in and they like test it out, and then they go back and they're like, no, she's good or she's legit or whatever happens. And then all of a sudden the next person comes in. So Sue was the first person to come in from the San Jose Sharks. She used to do the payroll for San Jose Sharks. That was her thing. And when she came in, at that point I had all the administration from the San Jose Sharks that were coming to me. But here's why I bring up Sue. So Sue came back in 1996, I guess, is when around that time when I graduated. And she heard what I had to say about her body being a self-healing machine. She heard about the importance of the spine and the nervous system. And I kid you not, she has been coming every week with a few weeks on and off for 22 years. So she doesn't follow my nutrition plans, that as far as I know. She rarely takes a supplement. I don't think she works out. I think she may walk. She has an amazing heart. She is pretty darn chill. Like she doesn't get wound up pretty easily. But why I bring her up is I've actually analyzed her from many different angles, because everything I know about nutrition tells me that she should probably not be as healthy as she is. And everything I know about toxins tells me, why is she on so few medications? What is it that Sue did? And I think that the answer is what you're going to hear tonight, is that what Sue did is she chose her nervous system to be the system she was going to work on. And she did it by coming weekly and getting her adjustments, and she did it by great mental attitude and a fairly balanced life. She doesn't have a high stressed life. So I bring that to your point because what I want to explain to you is that a lot of your pain is coming, a lot of people when they get stuck in pain, because their nervous system is stuck. The nerves are stuck in what we call sympathetic dominance, what would be easier to understand is it's fight or flight, where you have had a stressor happen to you or multiple stressors happen to you, and your body is reacting by going into crisis mode. Now, what is so hard for patients to understand is that the crisis can feel like it's done. Like I'll give you an example. I have a patient right now who has chronic low back pain that for the most part will diminish it a little bit. It never completely goes away, but it'll diminish and then it'll come back. And it'll diminish and then it'll come back. And we have been throwing everything at it for 2 to 3 years to try to make it go completely away. It started with a year where her best friend died of cancer, her father died, her son went off to college, and I think there was one other major, like she changed jobs. So in that year, she had so much stress on her that her body just went into this frozen, sympathetic, dominant mode, and we're working to get it out. And what I'm going to show you today is some really cool strategies for getting yourself out of that frozen place. So I want to start off by talking, does that make sense, by the way? Just so I'm clear if you guys are tracking me. I want to talk about your nervous system from, I want you to think about it from your nervous system standpoint for a second. When you have stressful events that happen in life, you are meant to adapt to them pretty darn quickly. We're meant to be, and I'm going to show you a really cool chart that I've been working on. A friend of mine turned me on, and your heart rate variability thing really got me thinking, so thank you. We'll talk about that. It turned me on to that our nervous system, when it was first developed way back in the cave person days, was meant to pretty much be calm for the most part. It was also meant to have social interaction and to feel at ease and to feel comforted. So this is the calming nervous system that we should be at. And then if you can picture, we're sitting by the campfire as cave people, and all of a sudden a bear comes out of the woods. Now we were humanly built to, at that point, pick ourselves up and boom, go and run as fast as we can. That's called fight or flight. And we were meant to do that for a short period of time, get out of danger, and then come home and sit back down and relax again. Right, I know everybody's laughing because it's like nobody's doing that, right? But that's how your body is designed. So it's the same thing as if you followed the Rushing Woman book. If you're a resetter and you've been following me, it's the same thing that blew my mind with that book, was that the female body was not meant to have prolonged stress, because the female body is meant to reproduce. That's, whether we like it or not, that's how we're built. So when we have prolonged levels of stress and stay in fight or flight, our hormones tank, because we're not meant to be in that level. Well, but the human body in general is not meant to be at sustained levels. So what I want you to start to understand is, what does fight or flight do for you? And you guys can't see this. You'll see I have a bunch of exercises and thoughts at the end on how we can get out of these really defensive ways of our nervous system works. So I want to actually take your emails, and I'm going to send you, as I find more, I'm going to send you some more exercises that you can do. So I will send you these, the PDF of this so you can look at it. But I found this. your body first perceives a threat, what it does is it locks down. Now, I want to read this to you because I think some of you guys experience this. When you first perceive some stress, your jaw tightens. Now, survival, the reason that your jaw tightens is because survival says if a bear was to come and rip your jaw off, you wouldn't actually be able to eat. And then if you couldn't eat, you wouldn't survive. Okay, so this is how primitive our nervous system is. So you tense your jaw, okay? Second thing is your pancreas starts rapidly burning up glucose. The other thing is that your glucose comes out and goes to your muscles so that you can run as fast as you can. Okay, so those of you that are having trouble balancing, like I know this is a whole nother topic, but those of you that are having trouble balancing your blood sugar, one of the things you gotta look at is, have you been in chronic stress for too long? Your pancreas is all mixed up because it's been in this position for too long. Your digestion shuts off because if you're gonna be chased by a bear, do you need to digest food? No. So those of you who have digestive problems that are not improving, is it possible that you're stuck in fight or flight? Because your body's like, why would I digest? Just like, why would I have a baby? Why would I do those right now? Because I'm stuck in this fight or flight reaction. The other interesting thing I thought is the fascia, which is is like saran wrap around your muscles, starts to tighten. Okay, so as a chiropractor, this one's really interesting to me. Because I wrestle you guys on the table when your fascia is super tight and I'm trying to get you to adjust. And since I started understanding this at a deeper level, I was like, oh my God, these people are stuck in fight or flight. Their fascia's tight, their jaw's tight. Check this out. The sacrum tucks under to protect your spinal cord. So those of you that have low back pain and your sacrum's out of balance because it's tucked under, stuck in fight or flight. Your thyroid stops working, it starts to overproduce to keep you cool because it thinks you're going to have to run. So those of you that are cold all the time, or those of you that have a thyroid problem, is it possible you're stuck in fight or flight? The muscles in your spine, I'm back to you guys that I'm adjusting, that become rigid because it's protecting the spinal cord.
Right.
All of that from stress. So what I'm hoping I can do tonight is help you see how to get yourself out of that. And there really are two ways you go about it. And one is that, and I'll come back to this in a moment, one is that you've got to start to activate your rest and digest system, which is what we call your parasympathetic system. So this is the system that just keeps you really mellow and allows you to relax. So the rest and digest system will slow your heart rate down. It will relax your muscles. It will get your, those of you that, here's another interesting thought. Constipation is the contraction of fascia and the shutting down of digestion, so the bowels aren't moving. You need to access the rest and the digest system so you can open everything up and start to get the bowels moving again. So constipation is actually an interesting indicator that you're stuck in fight or flight. So it also will start to stimulate, it'll contract your bladder, it constricts your pupils. It truly is the system, the parasympathetic nervous system is the system that allows you to repair. And when you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, you balance out fight or flight. So what is crazy, and what I think we all, and I'm going to put myself in the same spot, and I'll tell you a little story about some pain that I had recently that really got me down this rabbit hole, is what's interesting is you're supposed to balance between these two. You're supposed to have some stress, then you're supposed to relax. And then you're supposed to have some stress, and then you're supposed to relax. Right? Like how many people, just by a show of hands, feel like that's them? I know I thought you guys might. Leanne? Okay, cool. Okay, Ron. Maria? You're good like that? You can do this? Oh, okay. I know we got your coworkers here, so yeah. So what's happening happening, again, for so many of you is that you are stuck in this fight or flight. So when you want to know how to get out of chronic pain, you have to ask yourself what is causing you to stick into fight or flight. And now, I'm the type of person that if you say to me, stop stressing, I want to punch you. Like, seriously, right? Like, to me, there are so many fun things to do in life. I want to do them all. I want to say yes to everything. I want to learn, like, I'm in this mode right now where I'm like, I'm not learning fast enough. I want to learn more. Like, how can I get more in my mind? And I just love life, and I want to do it all. But that sort of puts me as a rushing woman. That makes me overdo things, and then I'm exhausted. So I really do get stuck in sympathetic a lot. My experience with my own pain is for the very first time in 22 years of adjusting people, I actually had my first injury it was about May. I started getting numbness and tingling down my arms, or just one arm. So usually if we see a tingling or numbness on one side, it's usually structural. When we see things on two sides, that's usually more like an inflammatory systemic thing. So I was like, okay, what's going on? It's a pinched nerve. So I was getting adjusted, I was getting massages, I was doing everything. And from May until about the beginning of August, nothing. I get off the adjusting table, I didn't feel a change. I got off the massage table, I felt nothing. And it was getting so bad that I was having to shake my hand. And these are my livelihood. So I was like, if this starts to not work for me, I'm in deep doo-doo. So about that time, I was also really working on the rushing woman syndrome, and that book really changed my life and made me look at things differently. And so I really started to look at where can I say no, how can I slow things down. As most of you have heard me say, sending my daughter off to college was a really traumatic thing for me. I'm just going to be really honest. It was really stressful and traumatic. And I knew that was going on, so I really tried, along with the chiropractic, along with the massage, along with everything else, I just started saying no to all the external stuff. And as I looked at it from a fight or flight reaction, the pain started to go less and less and less. And I will tell you, here I stand today, I have no pain at all. And I just did all the tools that I knew would work, and I worked on getting myself out of fight or flight. So just to give you some perspective, that sometimes you've got to do all the right things and get yourself out of fight or flight at the same time. Okay, now, here's what's really cool, and this is what I totally geeked out on. Who's heard of the vagus nerve? I know Ron, I just thought Ron had.
Heard of it, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Heard of it,
Okay, heard of it. Who feels like they know the vagus nerve? Ron, I bet you do. Do you feel like you know the vagus nerve? You better, Christine.
Whole abdomen.
It connects the brain to almost every organ in the body. So the vagus nerve sits in your brain, it comes out of the brainstem, and it connects to almost every organ in your body. And what it does is it tells the brain what's going on with these organs. And it also is the connecting, they call it the wanderer nerve because it can go to so many different places. But why it's getting so much attention right now is it's one of the best ways to actually turn on your rest and digest nervous system. When you actually access the vagus nerve. And wait till you see, I'm going to show you tonight some really funky things you do to access the vagus nerve. Who's heard of heart math? I think you guys have. Have you guys done any of the heart math stuff? You guys, you have? Mm-hmm. You guys, Ron and Deanna, you have too?
I get a quote.
You get a quote? Okay, and what has it been effective for relaxing you?
When I practice it, yeah, it actually will, my whole breathing will calm down, and I have a little feedback thing put on your finger, and it's
awesome. Okay, and
work at it though.
Right. So do you know? And I'll talk about heart math for you guys that don't know it towards the end. But do you know that heart math is built all off the vagus nerve? That's the whole thing is built off of how do you stimulate the vagus nerve. And in fact, if we just ended this right now and I said, go figure out how to stimulate your vagus nerve, many of you would find that not only your pain would go away, but many things in life would change for you. It's that powerful of a nerve, because what the vagus nerve does is if you're stuck in sympathetic dominance and you start to work on fixing and stimulate it, they call it vagal tone. You work on stimulating the vagus nerve, all of a sudden the parasympathetic nervous system comes up and you start to have more balance. So I'm going to show you, that's a big part of what I want to talk tonight about, is how do we get you to stimulate the vagus nerve. So, but here's what happens when you are in stress. When you have a strong stress reaction to something, you actually kill your vagus nerve. So you shut that vagus nerve down. So if look at, as high as this goes low. It's like almost like blood sugar. As high as it goes, as low as it goes. So if you're stressed all the time, what they're finding is that most people don't have enough vagal tone. And how you measure your vagal tone is through something called heart rate variability, which we'll talk about later, and is all what HeartMath was based off of. And Kim just showed me a really cool app that I've been using every morning. I don't know if you've been using it every morning, that you can measure the function of your vagus nerve. Super cool. So I'm gonna show you that. But what I want you to see is that it truly, you kill this beautiful nerve, so here's another cool thing about the vagus nerve. They say that our gut feeling, that's all transmitted through the vagus nerve. Now think about it. When you're stressed, how strong is your gut feeling? Strong? Like when I'm like wickedly stressed, like a lady with my head cut off, I couldn't tell you if a decision was right for me or not.
Right.
Because I'm so disconnected from because as sympathetic goes up, my vagus nerve goes down, and I'm a gut-based person, so I make all my decisions off of what happens, what I feel in my gut. That's like my whole life has been like that. So I totally resonate with this. So it's interesting. I diverge. I just am so excited about this nerve, because I think if we can all learn to stimulate it, I think we could save lives. I really do. I personally think this being in fight or flight is killing people. And if you look at chronic pain from an alarm system, your body's trying to tell you do something, and you actually do something to balance these nervous systems, I truly believe you'll save your life. I had a story of a friend who had a really close friend whose husband was working at a startup. This happened about 4 months ago. 55 years old, the startup was about to go public, beautiful family, everything was going great, and they found the husband slumped over his steering wheel, died of a heart attack. Like no indication, nothing, ate well, wonderful man, family man, just working his ass off. Well, what happened there, there's a lot of pieces, but for sure he was stuck in fight or flight. For sure his nervous system just eventually started to kill him if we get stuck in these patterns. So this is something, I know we've got a lot of spiritual lovers in the crowd and metaphysical admirers, maybe I'll call them. This is a really cool concept that's emerging in self-help, and even the spiritual community is looking at it, and it's called the Polyvagal theory. And a psychiatrist, his name is Porges. I'd recommend you go look at him on Facebook or on YouTube. I've already stalked a lot of his videos. Porges. Porges, yeah, but it's spelled Porges. Stephen with a PH. He came up with what he has been studying. So he's at a university, and what he's been studying is he's saying what's happening to us now is that because we live in such a stressed environment, because we have had so much fight or flight, that the human being, and I really want you to think about this, is actually starting to create a whole nother nervous system, a whole nother defense nervous system. So, and this one is not called fight or flight, this one's called freeze. This is where you've had so much stress that now you're locked. And you're instead of being in worry, anxiety, fear, and panic, you're actually now helpless, you're depressed, you withdraw. And I mean, we can all relate to this when we have been way overloaded. What do? We totally withdraw. And so what's happening in our culture right now is that too many people are going into this higher level of nervous system that is so, so damaging. So we thought fight or flight was bad, but it's freeze that really is what's killing people. And it's interesting because this week I talked to a lot of people about, about some of these theories, and whenever I say the word freeze, your body's locked, people go, yeah, that's happening to me. That's exactly what's happening. I feel like my body's locked. So I take it that if you're in freeze, I hope you really have a wake-up call that it's time to figure out, get all the stressors out. Because I think what I'm hoping you'll see is that it's not just your husband that's the stressor or your job that's the stressor. It's physical, emotional, chemical stressors coming at us over and over and over again. And what I did, and why also I want your email, is I created a list of the major ones. It's a checklist that when you get in this freeze mode, what I want you to do is pull out your checklist and go, am I doing these things? Have I looked at these things? Because some of them I'm going to teach you tonight, you probably are going to be shocked at. But the nervous system responds to everything that it's emotionally receiving, everything physically it's receiving, and everything chemically that it's receiving. Okay? But to me, that's like blew me away that we have a whole nother nervous system. Now, another cool thing, okay, I'm going to turn the air down a little bit because Ron's eyes are getting sleepy. It's Ron's fault. No, I'm just teasing you. The other cool thing is, guess what? The medical world thinks that the vagus nerve is pretty darn exciting as well. And so these are two, I found this in an article in Neurology magazine. This was way back in 2000 that they found that vagus nerve stimulation suppresses experimentally induced pain. Okay? This was done, 2015. This is a review that vagal nerve stimulation is in chronic pain management. So they're looking at this vagus nerve to see how they can control pain, people who are in chronic pain, because we have a friggin' huge opioid crisis right now, which, by the way, back up 1 second, when you're in fight or flight and you shut down, you numb yourself, alcohol, food, opioids, what you do is you just move yourself closer to freeze mode. Because you tell the body, I don't want to hear what you have to say. And so you just move yourself into the higher level. So, but check this out. Vagus nerve stimulation is one of the most promising chronic pain interventions under development today. Pretty cool, right? You're like, sign me up. Anybody know what vagus nerve stimulation from a medical perspective looks like? So what they do is they insert it's like a fibrillator. They surgically insert a stimulator onto the vagus nerve and surgically go into your neck, stimulate it, and then when you need a little extra stimulation or you need extra pain control, you put a little zapper there that turns it on and stimulates the vagus nerve.
Wow.
Right? A little severe. Now, they have found that it's been really, I'll show you some studies, it's been really helpful. This in rheumatoid arthritis cases, they found the stimulator is really helpful. But I think a really good question that we have to ask ourselves is, holy cow, there's got to be a better way than that. Is anybody else feeling like that? Like, don't sign me up for that. So what I want to really look at in more detail, I'm going to show you exercises that will help bring up your vagus tone. But it's like anything else. If we just focus on increasing our vagus tone and we don't work on getting our nervous system out of this fight or flight, we're never going to win the game with pain. We're never going to win the game with stress. So what I want to look at is really what's causing us to stay in fight or flight. What causes us to stay in these things? And this is where you guys have heard me over and over and over again talk about, we are literally, if I could draw a bucket around you, you are like a bucket of traumas, physical, emotional traumas. You're a bucket of toxins. You're a bucket of infections. And the longer we live on this planet, the more we start to fill our bucket. And I know a lot of people in this group have heard me before. What is hard for our brains to realize is that your bucket may be huge and your bucket may be small, because that's where genetics come in. How much we can handle these toxins really is based up to our genetics. And then our exposure to toxins at this particular moment in 2018 is higher than ever. It's ginormous. So if you want to get yourself out of fight or flight, then you've got to start looking at your bucket. What is filling your bucket? And as I go forward, everything I will show you will, a lot of times I show you the bucket from a brain standpoint, or I show you the bucket from a gut standpoint. I'm going to show you from a pain standpoint what we know about what's filling the bucket and causing people to stay in pain. Before I do that, the other thing I want you to see is that as you get exposed to more toxins, more traumas, more infections, and I'm going to show you a couple interesting cases that we're finding with infections right now. What ends up happening is that your body releases something called cytokinins. And cytokinins that's inflammation. And they basically are continually being produced in your body as long as you continually fill your bucket. So if you come and get adjusted and you feel great after you leave, and then you go out and let's just say, I don't think anybody in this crowd would do this, but then you go and eat at McDonald's and you fill your bucket, all you're doing is stimulating more cytokinins. If you get adjusted or you get a massage and then you get up, I have this case with a patient right now, you get in a moldy car. Her husband's got mold in his car. That's an infection. Actually, I'm going to show you some stuff on mold. Then you get aggravated by an infection, your bucket's really full, then what ends up happening is now you've got a massive release of cytokinins. Does that make sense? Because what I'm trying to do again is give you like a paradigm to fit your pain in, so you see that you have control. It took me 4 months, and I know a whole lot about the human body. It took me 4 months to get my nerve and my numb fingers under control. But I had to keep digging in the bucket and going, what else? What else do I need to do? And I eat really clean. I was down to like really, really minimal stuff. I was fasting more, and I'll show you some of the bucket depleters that we can do. Again, what happens when we live in a world where as somebody has pain, they keep getting handed a prescription? And it's this chemical. This is where my heart breaks and I get so frustrated, is that if we keep throwing chemicals at a problem, at a nervous system that's already in fight or flight, is that going to help that nervous system? And to me, the answer is no. This is why, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the opioid situation right now. It is so bad. It is so bad. This is how bad it is. I have patients that come to me with chronic pain on their initial visit, and I've heard multiple times now that doctors are telling people, I can't give you a prescription, go drink alcohol. That's your best pain reliever.
Oh.
I've heard that multiple times now as a pain reliever. I know. I'm like, well, you gotta leave that doctor. But that's because they don't know what to do with the opioid situation. So what I'm going to teach you over the next 20-30 minutes is how do we empty your bucket and how do we increase your vagal tone. That's what I really want you to think about. And I'm hoping that from this point forward, anytime you get stuck in a pain loop, you'll do the same. Okay, what's in my bucket? How can I get my vagus nerve more stimulated? How can I get my rest and digest system up? And I'm hoping that these will be little trends and skills that you can use from this point forward, so that you don't necessarily have to always rely on a doctor to help you. My goal is I want to keep you out of the surgery room. I want to keep you out of having to be in that dilemma where do I take a prescription, do I not take a prescription? I want to keep you as far away from that situation as possible. So we really have 3 things that we look at. A lot of these, you guys, I know this group has heard me talk about before, but when we look at traumas, they're basically 3 things. It's super simple: physical, emotional, and chemical. So physical trauma is also pretty darn simple. You either are doing something repetitively, like we talked about tonight, I don't think you heard this, Jan, but I was like, you guys should switch sides of the bed or get a new bed. But like I just had a thought, like after adjusting both of you, I thought, I think they need to get on the, like there's something repetitive that might serve you by breaking that repetition. So I work on a laptop. So I was like, okay, it has to be my laptop. Maybe it's, you know, and I have 8 recliners in my house. I'm embarrassed to tell you. I literally was the person that was like, shoot me if I have a cell phone, shoot me if I have a minivan, and shoot me if I get a recliner. I know, nobody shot me yet, but I didn't get a minivan, but boy, did I drool over my friends who would take their babies and push a button and the doors would open and they would put their baby in there. I was like, I held strong on that one, but I'm addicted to my cell phone, and I have 8 recliners in my house. So I sit on the recliner on my laptop. So I was like, okay, Mindy, you gotta, you know, have a little talk with yourself. That doesn't make any spinal sense at all. So I stopped that behavior. So that would be an example of a repetitive and a piece of the puzzle that was working for me. So you have to look at what could I repetitively be doing. The things I've seen have been mattresses. I have seen cars, people's cars don't work well for them. Anything that a chair that you sit in, anywhere that you are on a regular basis. I think the 2 hardest ones for people to come to grips with are, like, I've seen brand new cars where people buy a brand new car or a brand new mattress, and that's the source of their repetitive physical trauma. But if you're doing something over and over again, Anita, you and I talked about this with yoga. Like, is it possible that headstands were the thing that was repetitively locking up a joint? So you want to just kind of take a general assessment of what you repetitively do. Then there's all this weird stuff that shows up that you do one time. I'm actually not worried about that. I'm only worried about that if you do a one-time thing and you don't get, the pain doesn't go away. If you do a one-time activity like you twist a knee and it's not getting better, to give you an idea, soft tissue should heal within about a 6-week period if it's severely damaged. If you're 4, 5, 6 months into it, you don't have a soft tissue problem anymore. You have a systemic inflammatory problem. You've got a toxic bucket that's too full. You've got a nervous system that's stuck in fight or flight. There's something beyond just the structure. So please keep that in mind. But if it's one-time weird thing, those things should go away pretty quickly. Spinal damage. So that is a trauma that we see obviously in here a lot. But you know what I used to for years was the chiropractor who would just adjust a bone and be focused on just adjusting bones and making people feel good. I didn't have all the corrective work that I had in here. I wasn't thinking about people's curves. I was adjusting, doing some muscle work. I didn't do any nutrition. Like, that was the first 10 years of my practice. And what I found was that people kept coming back in with the same problems over and over and over again. I can't tell you how unrewarding that was. I was like beat up from the problems never going away. People would tell me, I feel great, but then a day later it comes back. And that's when I moved into doing more corrective work. So why we are focused on your curves and all the things all the measurements we do is we're really looking at how do we get your body back to a place where it's relaxed. It doesn't have to be in fight or flight. And a lot of you guys, Leanne, you're a great example on this, we all of a sudden end up down a detour of pain and we're like, wait, we have to stop, we need a re-x-ray, we need to know if the spine has left its original spot. So knowing that your spinal cord is 17 millimeters long. So if you don't have just the curves alone, you don't have the proper curves, you've got traction on your spinal cord. Now when you have traction on your spinal cord, you're in fight or flight and you'll stay there. So like, how many of you have gotten adjusted and you leave and you're like, oh my God, I just feel more relaxed? Has anybody ever had that? I have that happen when I get adjusted. So what it does is it takes pressure off the nerves so the body can get out of fight or flight. But if you keep putting it back into fight or flight, it won't get out of there long. The other thing that you have to look at with the repetition is that so many of us are starting to get this kind of posture. So if you're here with like a couple or a friend, or we got Cupertino in the house, you guys need to all remind each other. Are we gonna be able to say that, Julio, when you're... you got to really remind yourself that you literally are fighting gravity all day long. And like the minute you stand up, you're like pretty much screwed because gravity's pushing down on you. Which is why we do the vibration plates and strengthen you, because if I can hold you back this way, this is a fight or flight reaction, this is rest and digest. So think about your posture, and you guys can help each other with that. The other thing that we know about the brain is that when we're under stress, we move from our prefrontal cortex into our more primitive brain, into our limbic system, which is like the alligator brain. This is why people who are really under a lot of stress don't make smart decisions. They can be mean because they're truly operating from the most primitive part of the brain. But prefrontal cortex is the area that, like, you see possibility, you can set goals, you feel happiness. And one of the things that we know is that, so when you have emotional trauma, you go to the limbic system. When you're out of emotional trauma, you go to your prefrontal cortex. So, obviously taking good care of your stress is a wonderful place to be. But what we are learning chiropractically right now, and I've told many of you guys this, that there's a woman named Heidi Havoc who's doing brain scans, just like you guys, who's heard of Daniel Amen? Yeah, you guys don't know Daniel Amen? Oh, go stalk him on YouTube. He's done brain scans on, he's a neurologist. He has several clinics. One of them is up in San Francisco. But he's done brain scans and looked at different lifestyle behaviors and how it affects our brain. So chiropractically, Heidi Havoc is putting a mesh covering on people's heads, and then she adjusts them and watches what happens to the prefrontal cortex. And 20 to 30% improved blood flow to your prefrontal cortex within minutes of being adjusted. How freaking cool is that? So I'll use my daughter as an example. She's been under, it's been up and down, let's just put it that way. But there was a moment in the first week where she panicked and was not sure about her friend group, and she was away from home, and I got the text of, I miss you, I wish I could just come home. I only got that one day. Pretty much the rest of the time it's been glorious. But the first thing I thought was, because I have friends in Fort Collins, was she needs to go get adjusted. Because if she goes and gets adjusted, I can get her out of that fear brain, and I can get her into the prefrontal cortex brain, and she can start making some more constructive, logical decisions about that. So, we have a tendency to look at the adjustment as being so focused on our pain. And yes, it's great because it raises the vagus nerve, but it also changes you and the way that your brain operates, which I think is pretty cool. Pretty freaking cool. Okay, and then the other trauma that we have that's happening to us, so we have physical, which is repetitive, or it's one time. Car accident would be a one-time one. We have emotional, which I'm not really the person to be up here talking to you about all the things that happen emotionally, but you guys know, this is a pretty enlightened crew that knows about how to handle emotional stress. And then you have chemical. So the third trauma is your neurotoxic load. So one of the things that I want, which leads me to toxins, one of the things I want you to understand about toxins is that toxins, it's not like if you were a kid and how many people broke open the thermometer and played with the mercury? I know I did too. Right? I know, it's super cool. I know, my mom said don't do it, and she went away, and I was in the bathroom, broke it open. It was really neat. So it's not like you touch the mercury and boom, all of a sudden you have mercury poisoning. It didn't work. It doesn't work like that with toxins. So what I love about this picture is when people get to that place where they're in this chronic pain situation, the minute I start saying anything about, structurally people can understand. Like the typical person goes, okay, bone out of alignment, pinched nerve, muscle spasm, pain, I get it. Like most people will agree with that. Then the next layer will be like, okay, what are you eating? I had this just today with a gal who was in pain, and I was like, okay, what are you eating? And people are now starting to wake up and understand that there are inflammatory foods. Do you guys feel like in this crew you guys have a good understanding? And I'll kind of zoom over that, but this isn't really a nutrition talk. But you do have inflammatory foods. So believe it or not, you can, I'll use my mom as an example. So my mom has been working on some chronic pain stuff, and she's doing fantastic, and we've made some great headway. And we get together every Sunday night as a family. And she came over one Sunday night, and she was telling me how she had gardened all day, which they love to do, and she was really in a lot of pain. And so then I started asking her, well, did you garden yesterday? Yeah, I gardened yesterday. I mean, my mom gardens all the time. That's that's what lights her up. So I was like, what happened last night? Like Saturday night, something happened. And she was like, oh, well, we went out to dinner. And I was like, there you go. Because every time you go out to dinner, you get inflammatory oils. And if you already have a situation where your body's trying to repair and you just put a little drop onto your bucket, that's how in chronic pain a situation can emerge. So you always want to think about the physical, but then the next level is look at the chemical. So diet can be that quick. Now with toxins, it's not that quick. We probably could have eaten the mercury thing and we probably would have been okay. But it builds over time. And so one of the things that I'm finding is that when we get to this conversation, you and I, and you're like, I'm still in pain, and I'm like, okay, we got to detox you. And I think that's what, again, a paradigm shift I'm really hoping you'll have is that you'll understand toxins play a part in your pain. If your pain is not going away, you first look at the structure, then you look at the diet, then you start to look at your toxic load. That's the most simple way that I can explain that. I think you guys all know this, that basically we are exposed to more chemicals. This was crazy in 30 days than our grandparents were in a lifetime. And those of you that have kids, your kids are exposed to more than ever before, ever. The things we're seeing with kids are ridiculous. I've never seen this level of illness in a generation before. And they're like pouring into our office now because they hear about the detoxing that we're doing, which is cool and sad all at the same time. So just know that you're in the world you're living in today. So this is another statement I hear from people. But I used to be able to go on roller coasters. I used to be able to go hiking. I used to be able to walk my dog, and I was fine. And now I go and walk my dog, and my back hurts. Okay, so if you've worked on the structure, you truly have to go look at diet and toxins. You have to start digging into that. So diet is, to me, the most logical place. Again, this talk is not one for me to really dive into diet because I think you guys know it pretty well. Do you all feel like you know it pretty well, this group? Yeah, and if not, you guys know I'm a huge fan of the keto diet. Part of why I'm such a fan of it is you lower inflammation really quickly. I had a woman in tonight who has been dealing with migraine headaches all summer long, and we've been adjusting her weekly, really periodically, and I said to her, okay, what are you going to do about your diet and toxins? And she's like, yeah, end of the summer, I'll deal with it. End of the summer. Next week, she would come in, oh, my headache was so bad yesterday. I got a massage. I've been getting adjusted. Don't know what's going on. Okay, when are you going to detox? When are you going to change your diet? At the end of the summer. So she came in tonight, and she was like, had a spring in her step. And she was like, came around the corner, and I knew right away. I was like, oh, she's either fasting or she's doing keto. And sure enough, she got to the table. She goes, you know what? I tried that fasting thing. And oh my God, it was tough in the beginning, but I feel so good. I've been fasting, I think she said 18 hours every day this week because she's in the resetter group. She's been doing keto and no migraines, pain gone, energy up. That's how quickly diet can change your stress level. Another interesting thing that I found is that fasting, I know we got a lot of fasters in here. Kim is our ultimate faster. Stacy's a faster as well. Is that fasting is now being looked at as a tool to get people out of fight or flight. Which is so funny because you think without food you'd be more stressed. But it's not the case. It's actually being used as a tool to get people out of fight or flight. So, was that a look? So, okay. So, a couple of things, I'll go over this really briefly. know, it's the grains. Okay, let me tell you the other story about my mom. Is I finally, her pain had gotten to a level, I sat her down and I said, look, this is what I do for a living. Like, let me show you what you can apply. Like, it's hard for family members, I get it. And she's like, but I'm gluten-free. And I said, okay, so tell me what you eat. Well, I have a gluten-free bran muffin in the morning. I have gluten-free sandwich or bread in the afternoon. And I said, okay, let's just do a trick. Let's just try something and let's go grain-free. And my dad is some of you guys know my parents. My dad's like, well, if she's going grain-free, I'm going grain-free. Like, he's like, I'm in, right? And sure enough, they went grain-free for 2 weeks. That's all they changed. And they intermittent fasted, the two of them. And within 2 weeks, my dad was like, I lost 18 pounds. My mom had lost like 6 or 7 pounds, and their pain had greatly diminished. So grains are something, unfortunately, we have to look at. Oils are the other thing. Packaged food, I think you guys know this. I don't need to hammer this home. So look at your diet. Second thing is look at your neurotoxic load. And here's what's so hard about heavy metals. This is so hard for people to understand. Okay, lead. I found this because I wanted to help people understand this. Lead has a half-life in the body of 20 to 30 years. Okay, so the number one source of lead comes through the generations. So for right now, my sister actually has the highest level of lead that we've ever tested out of like 200 tests. So my lead was high. That's how I came to this whole heavy metal. And I know some of my mom's chronic pain stuff is lead. We just haven't tested her. But it comes passed down through the generations. So you're born with a lead level. Okay, let's say it's crazy high. It's going to take 20 to 30 years for half of your lead level to get out of your system. So it won't completely go out of your system for 60, and that's just naturally if you don't do anything. And if you don't accumulate anymore. This stuff, and 90% of lead lives in your bones. So over time, as we walk around, it comes out of our bones and it starts to irritate nerves and it starts to put us in fight or flight. So when I say, when you're in chronic pain, I go back and I say, okay, have we looked at your physical trauma? Okay, have you looked at your emotional trauma? Okay, have you worked on your diet? And if the answer is yes, 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 now's the time to start looking at your neurotoxic load. That's the order in which I would put those. So lead, they're finding that it increases heart rate variability, which I'm going to talk to you about in a moment. Heart rate variability is the way we measure vagal tone. When you have high heart rate variability, you have low vagal tone. So when lead comes out of your bones 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, it puts you in fight or flight. Okay, this is why we're obsessed with detoxing this stuff. Here's from PubMed, this June 2018, heavy metals and its connection to chronic pain. We're starting to now see more evidence of that. Rheumatoid arthritis and heavy metals. So they're finding that autoimmunity is coming from heavy metals. And then my favorite is from the World Health Organization, that there are no known levels of lead considered safe. And lead is a cumulative toxin that affects multiple systems and in particular harms children. It is distributed to the brain, the liver, the kidney, and the bones. And it's released during pregnancy and gives exposure to the fetus. So if you watch any of my Facebook Lives, last week I did a bunch on heavy metals, which, by the way, people are starting to wake up to this because poor Jessica got bombarded with questions. But I have this patient who, he started a business called, or a nonprofit called the Non-Toxics Coalition.
The top,
Yeah, do you know Ted?
I do.
Okay, very well
Yeah, he's
respected.
been around a long time doing Toxics Coalition.
Yeah, so
Decades.
he was the first person. This is the way my husband has so much admiration for this man. It's really cute. Like my husband's the environmental guru, and he basically was the first person as we were making computers to say, what are we doing with all these parts? Where are they going? What about the workers who are making the computers? What are the chemicals are that they've been exposed to? And he and his wife together, his wife is an attorney, have been working tirelessly to educate people on lead, or on chemicals, I should say, on heavy metals. So he was in here a week ago, and he saw one of our posters, and he was on his way to Manila. They've asked him to come to Manila and be a keynote speaker at a toxics seminar and help educate the people in Manila and companies in Manila on how they can start to pull toxins out of the work environment. And he saw one of our posters and he said, what are you doing with the heavy metal detoxing? And I told him, and he said, Mindy, you have to let people know that it's in the pregnant woman. That's where lead's coming out. It's in mom and it's going into the baby, and we have to get it before that point or they're gonna be really, really sick. Okay, now this is a guy that doesn't care about his diet. He's not working out. He comes and gets his adjustment. He's passionate about the environment, but he is not personally in love with taking care of his health. But he was so adamant about this, which I thought was interesting because he's so well respected. He was actually honored by the Dalai Lama as one of the most years ago, one of the most influential people of our time. So that's lead. I could go on and on about heavy metals. And if you haven't done a heavy metal detox, please come talk to us. Get your metals tested. At least know what's going on with your lead levels, and mercury is the other biggie. So, okay, I'm going to zoom through this, and then we're going into vagal nerve. Infections. So, Candida. Candida is a big infection that we see. Most of the people who have chronic low back pain, when I test them, have some type of Candida. So if you haven't done a gut zoomer, I would encourage you to do a gut zoomer and get your gut looked at to see if there's any Candida in there. Lyme, I don't think anybody in this crew has Lyme, but we are getting more cases of Lyme right now. Candida tends to be the overall pain, whereas and the low back pain, whereas Lyme is more neurological. It's more spastic. So we'll let you know. I mean, Lyme is like after we've done everything, we may go and say, oh, you might have Lyme. But we're getting a lot of people in now. I have a patient who I'm coaching virtually, and she can't move her neck from Lyme. It's got her neck totally frozen up. So, and then the other one that we're seeing a ton of right now is mold. And mold is the joint pain. If you're experiencing pain in joints in multiple places, please test for mold. Now, let me tell you this because I just discovered this. So testing for mold there is a test, it's called ERMI test. You can get it on survivingmold.com. If you're somebody who suffers with chronic pain and you are throwing everything at it, I really would recommend you test your house and make sure you don't have mold, because it is another one that will put you in this fight or flight. It will cause the cytokinins. So, but what we found is even more effective because some of you have been exposed to mold years ago. Like my sister had a moldy closet, and I can smell mold right away on somebody. I can actually smell it on people's clothes. None of you I've smelled it on, I'll let you know, but I literally right now have 2 patients I smell it on, and I'm trying to find the right way to say something to them. But I don't know if you guys I can smell it when I go into a house. So check this out. It's like an $80 test, and it's a swab. You can get it from us. We just got 20 of them in, and you basically go up into your nose, and you take a swab, and you do both nostrils. We send it off to the lab, and it'll tell you if mold is an issue for you for $80, and it'll let you know if you're breathing mold in. So we're pretty excited because we get a lot of these people that are really stuck in pain and they can't get out, and we need to look at things like that. Okay? Okay, let's talk vagus nerve. So the solution, as I told you, is really to start to empty your bucket. I would put it in this order. And again, I'll send you guys the list, but I would look at your spine, I would look at your gut, and I would look at your emotional stress as being like if you, well, I'll use myself as an example. So low back pain shows up for me when I feel unsupported. It's something I actually realized this summer. So, in the transition of 2 doctors leaving and getting Christina in, which is great, that first week I was here adjusting, I would go home with low back pain. And then as Christina got up and going and we got through that transition, miraculously, my low back pain went away. And I was like, well, what? Like, I didn't do anything different. How is that? And I realized that it's an emotional response when I feel unsupported. So that's how I looked at it, and kind of how I use the emotional part is there an emotion attached to it? So toxins, make sure, if I'm such a fan of the ketobiotic diet, make sure you're fasting, please. I can't say enough. I think fasting is going to save the world because everybody can afford to do it. So, and it's so effective. But make sure that if you want to know more about that, we can talk more about it. Make sure you check your heavy metals. And then this would be third, the mold and everything after you've done all the other things. That to me is the third. Okay, I've created that for you. Let's talk about how you improve your vagal tone. So I'm a measurer. I like to measure things. So I have looked into getting a heart rate variability machine here in the office. And it would require that you come in and you lay in a dark room that's quiet, which I don't even think we have, and that we would have to turn off the wobble music for sure, and that you get hooked up to a bunch of electrodes, and that we would measure your heart rate variability for like 20 minutes. So I literally, because I think this is so important, I've gone back and forth. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Like, I'd have to have a whole staff member. I've been really looking at that, which is why what you showed me was amazing. The more I study this, the more I'm like, we have to know everybody's heart rate variability. Okay, I think heart math is cool. I think that's a path. It's still a little more complex than I'd like it, until Kim came in last week and told me about something called Weltery. And it's on your phone. It's an app. And I've been doing it first thing in the morning. And you put your finger over your camera and your flash, and it basically tells you, it gives you a little meter of what your heart rate variability is doing. Now, let me tell you, last week I had a great week. I'm actually on my 4th brain detox, and if anybody's brain detoxed and not had a good experience, let me tell you, it's coming, because I was freaking euphoric last week. I don't know what, I was like, it has to be the cyto detox. Like, I don't know what it is, but I'll take it. So I wake up and I do my Weltery, and it tells me I'm stressed. And I'm like, and you had just said to me, I don't know if it's accurate, I'm not sure. And I was like, oh, well, maybe it's not accurate. Kim's probably right, because I'm not stressed, I don't know. So then, next day I get up, I do it again, gives me a red bar, I'm stressed. And I'm like, I'm like, fuck you, like, I'm not stressed. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not stressed, really. Like, I'm gonna have a good day. Next day, Friday, get up, do it again, red arrow, you're stressed. And I'm like, yeah, for sure, Kim is right, like, this is not accurate. So I do some research into Weltery, and I'm like, what technology are they using, and are they really accurate? And there's some pretty good, have you done that research, Kim? It's pretty impressive. So Saturday morning, the first day of a 3-day weekend, I get up, I take a measurement, green. I'm like, oh shit. Sunday, get up, boom, green. Monday, green. Tuesday, yellow. Wednesday, red. Yesterday was red. So I actually think it may be a little accurate. It basically tells you if you're in a fight or flight response. And it measures it off the frequency of your pulse, but they're also looking at the pulses in between. So they're not just looking like, the one thing I did learn is my resting heart rate is awesome. I was very excited about that. But, so it will tell you that too, what your resting heart rate is, which I think is neat. But it's looking at in between. So check this out. This is from Heart Math. This is when somebody's in frustration. This is their heart rate variability. It goes up and down and up and down and up and down. When they're in appreciation, it's much smoother. So they're looking, what Welltory is measuring is what that heart rate variability is doing. So I would love if you all would go and play with this app and give me feedback, because what I'm hoping to use it as a tool to start to help people see how we can get them out of fight or flight. So we use all the physical tools here. We're doing all the detoxing and the diet, but I'd love for them to be able to also see how that works for them over time. So like Kim, I think this would be fun for me, is if while you're wobbling, do it, and then get adjusted, and see if they're like 45 minutes, hour later, do it again, and see where it's at. Did it go down? Does it go down? Is it lower the day after an adjustment? So if you do it every morning. So we can play as a group. I think we can play with that and have fun. So, okay, let's talk about how you improve your vagal tone. So for starters, this is my new favorite book, and you can get it on Amazon. It has some cool exercises in it, okay? So my biggest strategies that I believe in for improving vagal tone, the adjustment, there's incredible research out there on how the adjustment will stimulate vagal tone. If you think about it, the vagus nerve comes out of the base of the skull. So if your occiput or your atlas is out of alignment, it's going to irritate that vagus nerve, which makes it work less. So how many times have you guys had a really good neck adjustment and you walk out of here and you're like, whoa, what just happened to me? I feel great. And that, you may, like the first time sometimes when we first adjust people, they tell us like, I feel high, I feel drunk. And it's because we're stimulating that vagus nerve and their body can finally relax. So fix your gut damage, because these two communicate with each other. So if your gut is a hot mess, it's going to continue to send messages up to the brain telling it that it's in fight or flight. It's going to continue to have those messages. Detox your metals, because as if you're over 50, your metals are now really coming out in bigger ways. So I really encourage you to fix your metals, and then of course work on your trauma. Now here's the really cool things, and you guys can Google this on YouTube and get this book. It's meant for the lay person. You can read it. There's exercises in the back. So the vagus nerve is stimulated by other cranial nerves that all relate to your face. So smiling, believe it or not, will increase your vagal tone. Gargling, because it's your glossopharyngeal nerve in the back, so gargling will stimulate your vagal tone. Singing, chanting. I heard Deepak Chopra did I ended down a rabbit hole on YouTube. He did something on vagal nerve, and he said oming, that when we om, that sound is stimulating to the vagus nerve. Anybody play a wind instrument? You do? What do you play?
Native American flute.
Do you play a lot?
Not enough.
You need to. I wish I knew how to play an instrument.
Yeah.
I would do it every day. So playing a wind instrument will increase your vagal tone
cool.
and relax you.
Cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Okay, because this is all the parasympathetic nervous system, taking cold water and splashing your face will stimulate. So it's funny because I crave cold water on my face at night when I wash my face. And I'm now like, and my husband was saying to me when I was talking about this, he said, well, think about it, Mindy, when you come home, I literally want to go into another part of the house. I don't want to talk to anybody. Because when I've had a long day, whether it's good or bad, and I'm in fight or flight, I want to go away from people. Do you guys have that feeling?
Yeah.
I don't want to, I mean, even my family, I was like, I want to go hide. Well, so we intuitively know. So washing your face, hugs, which is awesome. Yogic breathing. So my favorite breath is 4-7-8, where you breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. You hold it for a count of 7, and you breathe out through your mouth for a count of 8. That stimulates the vagus nerve. Okay, now there is a long list, which is why I want your guys' email, because I'm now on a hunt for amazing vagal tone exercises. And as I find them, I'm going to put all your email on a group, and I'll send them to you so you guys can, now that you know what it is. Here's one of the ones in the book that's really cool. you basically you lay on the ground, you put your hands behind your head, and you look straight up, and you look all the way, once you get your head, you don't want to move your nose, you look all the way to the right. And you hold your eyes, because it stimulates that cranial nerve, you hold your eyes for a minute to the right, so set a timer, then you come back to the center, and you hold, you seem like, look, my head wants to go. You hold your eyes to the left for a minute. And that's supposed to reset the vagus nerve in the upper cervical area. So could you do that at night when you got home? Pretty easy to do.
You do it in bed before you sleep.
Right, right. And then you're not, so those of you that can't sleep well, not sleeping well is being stuck in these nervous systems. So what if something as simple as splashing cold water on your face, oming and chanting, playing your wind instrument, and then doing that exercise before you go to bed, what if that helped you sleep?
I do the 4-7-8 laying in bed just before I fall asleep.
Awesome, awesome. So play with that, and here's what I just know from working with a lot of people is that you guys are going to pick the easiest thing to do first. So like Suzanne will be like, oh, I just need to, what'd you learn at the conference or the workshop? I need to go play my wind instrument more. So it won't work as well if you're not dealing with the stressors, and that's why I set that up. So, okay, last thing I want to tell you about is some cool things that are on the horizon. Who's heard about stem cells? Yeah, so I'll keep you posted, but there's some promising research on stem cells. And if you have a worn out hip, if you have a worn out disc, if you have a joint that's bone on bone, that's the time you might want to look at stem cells. And there's an incredible guy up in San Francisco. There's a guy in Utah. They'll do it down in Mexico at the dental place. But stem cells is definitely on the rise, and it's legit, and it's working with your own body. So there's no side effects, there's no chemicals, so I'm really a fan of stem cells. So if you feel like you need to get some stem cell injections, come talk to me, I'll tell you what I know about it.
I heard guys do it over a little more.
Oh.
There are 4 chemicals that they, besides the stem cells, about, including growth hormone.
So you need to go to the right guy,
Okay.
because they're not all stem cells are the same. Yeah. So you want to go to the right guy. And that's why if you're interested in doing it, let me know and I'll tell you what I know about it. So my husband has he's a soccer player. He has one part of his hip where he's bone on bone, just a little part. And so we've been talking about it for him. What would that look like? And the guy who specializes in musculoskeletal stuff is actually in Salt Lake City. So I've been thinking about flying him there and having him do stem cells there.
One other thing is I've been explaining to me that scar tissue is the malarrangement of cells within tissue, muscles in the eye. Will stem cells rearrange those cells?
It's supposed to. It's supposed to go in. So, okay, I only have one personal first-hand experience with stem cells. It was a patient that had several discs that were worn out in her low back. And she went and did it before I even knew what it was. Like, I was like, okay, you're going to go do what? This was 3 or 4 years ago. She had multiple shots in all her discs. We've been x-raying her once a year for the last 4 years. And every year the discs are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Her last, I kid you not, this is Beth. Do you know Beth? Mm-hmm. This is her, and she'll tell you her story. Her last x-ray, she had perfect curve in her low back, and all of her discs were regrown. And so it has a delayed response. It's not, and I think it was the combination of that. She's also eats really well. She's detoxes. She gets adjusted. Like, she's been doing all of it. So it isn't a get out of jail free card, and you'll never get back in jail again. So you got to be careful with that. So okay, fasting is my other one. So was this helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to give you like a real paradigm that you guys can work from, because what I was hoping would happen at this event would be that now you have a lot to think about and you have a lot of tools, and that when pain sticks around, we can have a deeper conversation about what you might need to do. I will email this to you so you can look at the checklist as well. And if you want a mold test, just let us know. We're just learning how to use it, so give us a week, but let those guys know because we have like we have 20 kits, so let us know. So, okay, there you go. Happy pain-free living.